Thank you all for those presentations. What I'll do now is I'll exercise some moderator's prerogative, and I have some questions to direct towards you, but then I'll be sure to leave some time for the audience to also offer their questions and thoughts. So my first question will be for you, Sandeep. On Impact Guru, and we saw, due to your question, that we have a fair number of NGOs here. Some may be healthcare related or medically related. I wonder if, given the success of medical fundraising on Impact Guru, whether you have any thoughts or insights that might be helpful, in particular to NGOs that are focused on medical needs.
Okay. So, irrespective of whatever kind of fundraising it is, it depends on, as in the cause is always not the single reason which drives a fundraiser to reach its goal amount. It's also very important to know probably who is driving this particular cause, who is making the appeal. So I'll give you a real case study which came on Impact Guru a couple of weeks back. There was one cabin crew of Indigo who was diagnosed with cancer. Now, this person, she needed close to 35 lakhs for her treatment at a hospital in Delhi. Now, this was driven by the HR of Indigo. It became so viral that Aditya Ghosh himself, who used to be one of the directors of Indigo, he made a contribution. So it is very important when we talk of non-profits, if every single volunteer utilizes his own network. I have a different network than maybe Kavita, then maybe Pushpaji. So if every single entity, every single individual drives a fundraiser, the reaching a goal amount is not impossible, irrespective of the cause. So,
is that related to just personal networks and the personal connection that then the folks in your network are able to make with who's making the appeal?
Yes, that is kind of very basic thing which everyone needs to do, every single non-profit needs to do. Because if, say, a single person is driving a fundraiser, it probably won't reach. You cannot just put up, even if it's on, irrespective of the platform, if there is only a story and appeal, it won't make much of a difference. If it's not appeal, as Kavita mentioned, most fundraisers do not pick up because donors are not asked, the right donors are not being asked. So if we reach out to them, if we mobilize it via multiple channels, that probably can be achieved.
Yeah, there's a clear connection to some of the lessons that
Yes.
Kavita shared. And, the slide, Ingrid, that you put up this morning, it's humans, humans, humans. I think that'll continue to come up again and again, because really what we're talking about here is just human connection and human communication, right? So thanks for that. Pushpa, I wonder, GuideStar India is such an important resource. Really what the best or most important source of information on NGOs in India. In the next 10 years, can you share a little bit about what's the path for GuideStar India? What's going to change? What are you excited about? What innovations do you have in your back pocket that are maybe secret, but you'll be willing to share with this distinguished audience here?
Nothing is a secret, and thanks for putting me in a spot. Woodrow did that to me last year to set a target for fundraising. And Ingrid, you gave me a target this year, and we put it on our website that we want to reach 50 crore. And at least if we have a goal, we will get there. I'll take a few minutes to again elaborate. It's been so hard while running a non-profit. I realized that, during my Give India days, I was neither, though we were physically a non-profit, I was not the leader running it as my, social enterprise. I realize all the issues that we face every day between planning and delivery or implementation. So I'm challenged with actually thinking about the next 10 years, and we've just entered the 10th year of the portal. So we are doing a visioning exercise and looking at the next 10 years. So someone said, oh, 2030, it's the SDG thing, but that wasn't on my mind. I'm realizing that looking at a 3-year horizon isn't enough. Some of these things, and having persisted with this goal and this mission for almost 10 years, I think I'm able to now begin to look at the bigger picture for the next 10 years. So what we're looking at is, when we started off, we were looking at GuideStar being the scaffolding or the information highways or the freeways to enable a lot of philanthropy in the ecosystem. Now I'm beginning to think of us as someone who would be working towards a very sustainable, robust civil society, and how do we enable that. The last few years have made us acutely aware about, as Rohini says, about Samaj, Sarkar and Bazaar, business, society, the civil society, Sarkar being government and Bazaar, the corporations. If NGOs were just dependent on the other two, we're never going to be robust and self-sustaining. Our programs will do a yo-yo, and I've also seen that government and corporate kind of move in the same direction because of various compulsions of how their fortunes are so closely interlinked. So for civil society, I see that everyday givers or individual givers or individual giving is going to take it has to be a very big slice of the overall resource mobilization pie, whether it's in-kind skills, volunteering skills, or money. And towards that, what we're looking at is we see ourselves as standing on 3 pillars. The first is very high quality data or information coming from nonprofits. And we have focused our first 9 years totally on that, building that trust and that relationship and giving tools such that you feel comfortable updating your information, but you also feel comfortable sharing a lot of information in the open. Now we have a track record of these 9,000 NGOs putting out a lot there and nothing going really wrong with that information. The second pillar, which we really are going to address in the near term, is the technology pillar. We've been kind of using a platform that was created 9 years ago by GuideStar International and gifted to us. They and we are now looking at locally working on a portal that supports all of the changes that have happened around us. So a very API-friendly website that can allow the hyper-local app, the e-commerce app, helping companies when they want to reach their consumers use this information on real-time basis, pretty much like what GuideStar in the US does, has more than 200 organizations, and you guys do so many of your products you cannot bring to India because our technology is not enabled. So we're calling it as Dynamite Technology Platform. And I'm a little more confident today about getting there because of the learning we're doing with givingtuesdayindia.org, which is totally developed here. And learning a lot from you guys and you guys. And I was looking at, you're always improving your tools. And I was actually partly inspired to say, why have I been staying away from fundraising from the individual givers for GuideStar? And maybe I can start that with global giving, where you have an audience that kind of looks at, organizations in India and not projects. The third big box or pillar is utilization of this information. We've just done it in a very minimal way. GuideStar in the US, in Israel, Belgium, and other countries actually starts off with information from government flowing into GuideStar. So when Jacob Harold and his team in the US, they have 1.8 million nonprofits tax exempt that used to flow always through the Form 990s or ITR 7 in India for tax exempt organizations. Here, that is not a public document. So on the one side, speaking with, moving I won't use the word advocacy, but using data to convince why that document needs to be a public document. Okay. At the same time, we're doing some interesting work in Maharashtra with charity transformation and trying to build this learning into how government systems, government interface with nonprofits can also lend themselves much better for philanthropy. So we don't have to be, so yesterday I said 80% of the work I was doing in Give India was to gather nonprofit information. So I set up GuideStar which can do that. So folks like you can build your services on top of it. Now I'm working more with government to see if 80% of the work that I do is available on government platforms. So we do a better bridge between that public information, the nonprofit contextual storytelling, and then you guys keep adding those services. Yeah. So all of us can go to market faster with innovation.
We're ready for it. So I'm excited about that, that vision. So one last question from me to Kavita. And this is an extension of the conversation that we've been having here across all three presentations that have been quite focused online. I happen to know that you also lead a field fellow program here in India. That is to say, an offline, real-world component of the program to augment what happens online. So I'd love for you to just say a little bit about that, say a little bit about the purpose and the benefits.
I think we've spoken a lot about trust and how trust is important in fundraising. When we work with such a large group of nonprofits, our donors also believe in us and believe that the nonprofits that we work with are trustworthy and that their money is being utilized in the right way. We do have a due diligence process, which is the financial and legal documentation that's checked before a nonprofit signs up with Global Giving. But we also have another layer to the due diligence. So we run a field program globally, and I run one in India. And this is with the support of volunteers, so it's not an expensive effort. We use volunteers who are trained in monitoring and evaluation, and they're sent out to visit at least 100 of our partners every year. So we try and cover 18 states. They visit these partners in 40 days. And give us evaluation reports on what is happening with the funds that were dispersed to the organization. Are they following the policies that we have and complying to the legal requirements of the country? So it seems like a Herculean task, but we're really lucky to get a lot of young, dynamic people. And I think that is what is most important and what makes this program a success.
So with that, we've heard themes of trust, of human connection, transparency. I'll open it up to questions from the audience. What questions are out there? And I think that there are microphones. I see one up front here, and then also in the back.
Can I go first since I have the mic?
Oh, sure. Yes, and then yes.
She says in her bullying manner.
Not only because you have the mic, you can go first.
One of the impediments to the sort of business models that all of you have talked about is actually getting NGOs to sign up. Mm-hmm. And what is it that you think, what are the barriers? We've talked about the barriers to donors giving. What are the barriers to just getting NGOs to sign up to platforms like yours? Because it seems like it's a Herculean task and I don't know why.
Anybody?
You can take it and I'll...
Go ahead.
I think I covered a little bit of this in my slides as well. Getting into the rural parts of India, working with organizations that don't have good internet connectivity. We have partners that travel like 45, 50 minutes just to write a report. The second issue I've seen is language. Unfortunately, our platform is in English at the moment, or fortunately. But only English, yeah. But how do we cater to a market around the world, actually, not just in India, that don't speak or communicate in English? That's been the second barrier, because automatically we are excluding those organizations unintentionally. And then the third one is just the process of individual fundraising is very new to a lot of Indian organizations. We are so used to grant writing and fundraising from corporates. So getting into that mode of storytelling and using beautiful images and marketing has also been a challenge. And that initial legwork is important, but a lot of nonprofits hesitate to do that legwork because they can't see the benefit right up front. So these are some of the challenges that we face, and I don't think it's exclusive to India. It's a global problem.
So I would add to that, as in Kavita rightly mentioned, a lot of people hesitate doing the initial legwork. A lot of NGOs, non-profits, they start multiple fundraisers across platforms. And trust me, the first 50,000, raising the first 50,000 is the toughest 50,000 any, be it a medical fundraiser or a non-profit fundraiser, that is the toughest thing to do. Getting the first 10 donations is the toughest thing. When a lot of non-profits fail to achieve that, probably in 5 days or 10 days, they drop the idea of online crowdfunding. They stick to there's no funds coming in via online crowdfunding methods, let's stop that. It's a persistent process, it's a long process and sometimes, and if you achieve probably the first 10 donations, getting the next 90 donations is considerably easy.
Of course.
So we said yesterday from 3.3 million, I think there are about 2 million nonprofits, but only 200,000 are filing annual tax returns. So I'm worried about that. There's still a huge misconception that nonprofits don't need to have a permanent account number with the income tax, and that most of them still don't have a tax exempt status, and they don't file annual tax returns. They believe that if you're non-profit, you don't pay tax, you don't. So there's a lot of education about unromantic things that have to happen. One is that, and the cost of communicating this, because enough of email has been done, we do it to death, but it's feet on street. So a couple of years ago, we had a grant from the Tata Trust, and that allowed us to go around the country and do workshops, break the language barrier, be face-to-face. So I also realized that for a lot of nonprofits who are there on Darpan, they're about 60,000 plus, which is the government website where people register. They get so much of spam communication that they can't differentiate when they hear from us whether we can be trusted. So while we are promoting trust of nonprofits among donors, they expect us to be physically there and tell them that you don't have to be worried with us. I'm talking about the big barriers that need to be broken. The other is that I think a lot of technology, since this is the Innovation Summit and a lot of conversation must be happening, we need tech that bridges. Most people use Tally for accounts, but how do you get from Tally directly your quarterly receipts to the reporting to the FCRA or your income tax information pulled out so that you don't get into spending time or that's not a headache that needs to be fixed. I also would say, in the interest of time, a good balance between Excel and Word. Like storytelling is important, good pictures important, using the right words and language, but understanding how internet works. So you don't need fancy words, but use the right terms that are being, and you guys do a lot of education around that. But I will go back to saying that every nonprofit social worker should use Excel and mail merge, because most people don't have a record of their donors. I know that you guys provide tools, but that's only perhaps donors that come through you. So just being organized with donor information, the CRM systems, there's a big gap there for tech companies to develop easy products for nonprofits to do their fundraising here. So I would think some of these things are really needed to go forward.
All right, so that's a call to any innovators out here in this Innovation
yes.
Summit for a need. Sir.
All of you talked about how to tell the story, right? Yeah, if it is a medical case, yeah, I can see a suffering patient or an animal suffering. For a situation where it is not like that, do you guys actually help us develop the story? Is it a 2-minute story and you said it's 4.2 seconds? Can you tell a story in 5 seconds and make them realize that this is very important and they must contribute? And when you have 9,000, there are lots of requirements. How do you make eyeballs come to my story and make sure that it happens? I mean, training is one thing, but to learn and to make it happen, would you guys actually develop the story for us if we tell the story?
So, on our platform, we do have an automated story writer in which probably anyone who's creating a fundraiser can simply fill in the blanks and a default story is created. We do have a team which actually helps various non-profits write a story, draft a story. But again, the facts have to come from the non-profit. As in, you'll have to tell us what exactly do you need, who you are targeting, because particularly if you are targeting HNIs, the story needs to be pretty much customized. You cannot target the same audience, with the same story to an audience in Tamil Nadu and use that to target an audience in, say, Punjab or to the diaspora. So it needs to be customized, but yes, we do have a team which can help you with that. But again, the non-profit has to come up with a lot of insights, as in the target group, plus what they actually intend to do with this particular project.
We actually have a different take on this. We believe that if we write the stories for you, it's going to be a temporary solution. You need to build the expertise within your organization for it to be a long-term solution, so you don't have to keep coming back. So we do have a host of different trainings and tools that you can access to learn storytelling and build the information you have into a compelling story. And the 4.2 seconds piece is the time a person looks at your profile, decides whether it's interesting or not, and moves to the next page. You can look at your own behavior, right? When you're scrolling through Facebook or Twitter or just the internet, something catches your attention. So what we believe is that we've designed the page in such a way that the image and the title is the first thing that you see. And in most cases, people only see that before they make a donation. Nobody bothers to read the whole thing unless they're really interested to read that. In today's world, nobody wants to read. So your image, your title, and that main summary is the most important part. Once you cover that, then of course, storytelling in your communication, in your social media, in your emails is important. So yeah, we don't write the stories for you, but we provide you the resources that can help you become good storytellers.
Can I also
Of
add
course,
to
yes.
what Kavita said?
And then,
Yeah.
as the microphones move,
Sure.
yes, sure.
The quick one from here is that storytelling is absolutely important, and like she said, it has to come from you. He said the same thing. My fix for that is, when we're not online, we are every day meeting people to tell them our story and to garner support. So if English is the barrier, record your story in your matrubhasha, in your mother tongue. Get someone to help you translate. There are also online translators that do the first piece. So yes, take help on that, but tell your story first. Look at the mirror and just tell your story, and it will go forward from there. Try to get volunteers who can help you with editing your story. So when we sent out for Giving Tuesday India, which is 2 days from now on the 8th, within a few hours, we got the first 50 stories from NGOs. I'm having my colleague to look at that and at least edit the sentence. Last year, we had an intern who searched for your story pictures from your social media and websites, and we had beautiful, more than, I think, 500 pictures that we culled, we edited, and we put it on our site within a week. So it's all, the treasure is with you, the stories you are creating every day, and it's not impossible to tell that story. And I hope, again, technology will give us translations on the fly. Like you can see the subtitling on YouTube. It may not be perfect, but we should be getting there sooner.
So, a small add I'll make to whatever I said also. So, it needs not, as in, it need not be a written story in all instances. Sometimes videos do, as in, describe your work better than a written story. So, videos, pictures, visual communication also helps a lot.
We've recently recorded a storytelling workshop that we did round the country for Giving Tuesday. Sanjay Mudnane, who is a brand storyteller, helped us with it. We will share that link with the conference organizers. It's there on our Giving Tuesday India toolkit.
Yeah, couple of questions here. One, for a new NGO in India, as of today, getting, whether you talk about ATG or whether you talk about 12A, it takes some time. It takes sometimes 3 years to 4 years to 5 years. I'm telling sometimes. So what I'm trying to say that till the time you get ATG or 12AA, is it possible to get a crowdfunding? That's question number one. Question number two, is it mandatory to have the FCRA for getting a crowdfunding? Because we see some of the crowdfunding, they say that if you want Indian donors, then FCRA is not needed. I understand crowd giving, it's an international organization, but FCRA is mandatory. What I'm talking about, the other people, that is it mandatory to have an FCRA? That is the question number two. And the final question is on the story. I run a foundation which is into the education space. Now, I don't have any story to tell. We are trying to build up a corpus for giving a funding to the poor people in the rural setup to support the scholarship, etc., etc. So there is nothing story to tell. It is essentially an appeal to the people to create a corpus, the interest out of which will go towards meeting that thing. So is it possible to get a crowdfunding for those type of
That
stories?
is your story. Yeah. So by story, I mean an appeal. Why would someone donate? If you reach out to someone, you'll have to probably explain, at least tell them that I need funds for this cause. So that is your story. So by story, we mean an appeal. So it's a message to someone who will come across your, say, fundraiser page, that this is what, say, Sandeep is trying to do. He needs funds for this cause. So that is your story. So conveying this message is what we mean when we are saying a storytelling, or the storytelling component.
Let's make sure to answer the first two components of the questions.
ATG one, yes. So ATG, we can accept donations, but transfers, as in if you want to give a tax benefit to the donor, then it won't be possible. So, for example, there are a lot of foundations which raise funds without giving tax benefits to the donors. That is possible in crowdfunding. For FCRA, without an FCRA, foreign donations cannot be routed into India. So, yes, local ones can work.
My answer to that, sorry. It's very, so I love, ever since crowdfunding happened, I thought it fixed a big problem. Like, till your NGO has 12A ATG, you as the founder, right, are an individual appealing to individuals, which is peer-to-peer fundraising. So drop your organizational hat, wear your personal hat, tell your story, why you are setting out to do this. I think when we are starting our organizations, our story sounds extremely powerful. And it's only like today when you're saying you don't have a story to tell, I can empathize, because once we keep working at that problem for 5-10 years, we are kind of so tired and bored sometimes that internally we think our story is no longer appealing or extraordinary. But the hard work that we've been doing, and we've been persistent with that problem, is a very big story. And I loved reference to context in school. I don't know what it's called now. What, when, why, where, how, all of those questions you have to answer, right? When you do that, your sentence gets constructed and the story emerges out of it. So pre-ATG 12A, you can raise money. In fact, to get your 12A ATG, it's strange, but they ask you for your body of work. So it is believed that you set out with a little pot of money and you're able to create evidence of your work. And within the first 3 to 6 months, you're supposed to apply for your 12A ATG. So you have to quickly do a certain amount of work, build your story. So even income tax is looking at your story. And I've gone for the hearing myself. And once you build that story, you show those pictures and that evidence, you get your 12A and ATG almost simultaneously. And then you begin your fundraising in a different way, showing tax deduction as an attractive offering to your donor. But a lot of donors don't care about tax. And we are talking about people giving 1 rupee, 10 rupees, 50 rupees, which is all possible today at very low cost. So they're not really asking for a tax deduction, ATG tax deduction.
Well, thank you. I think with that, we will end.
Alex, wait, I have the mic. I need 2 minutes because that's the devil's voice.
Yes.
And that's important, right? Because what I am thinking is that ultimately we are again going in the wrong direction. We are still teaching people how to write a good thank you note, right? We are still, so my question at Gunj, what we are doing for the last 2 decades, and we have been questioning this, that how long will we sell poverty to remove poverty? How long will we sell those pictures of miseries? And I mean, why the individual giving needs to be event-based or misery-based? So I think it's extremely important when the crowdsourcing, thing is evolving in India and it's pretty new to us. It's extremely important to change that language and narration.
Yes.
People need to become a stakeholder. People need to, why should I thank again and again in a very beautiful marked note for giving money? It's the responsibility of the common citizen of this country. Fine? So I think that narration, that language has to change. I do not want crowdsourcing funds, if you see, just to raise money on the basis of some whether medical emergency or the natural emergency. This country needs regular, that's a very important question what this gentleman really asked. That how do we really build up the culture of giving? How do we make sure that the country understands that it's not about one visible scene, one visible disaster where we have to give. But half the country does not get 2 meals a day or 1/3 of the country, whatever data says, I don't know, but it's scary. So I'm coming at the fag end of it because I've been listening, but that's extremely important to change the narration. We need to, if we are talking about innovation, we need to innovate in the language also.
I agree. No, I agree. And that's where the points come together. So, we've been talking so much about storytelling, and you're bringing up a really important point about what this has looked like historically, and actually what the need is in terms of building up narratives and ways to connect that actually build up human dignity, right? Build up on our inherent human dignity. So I will let you have the last word, fulfill my responsibility because I know that I'm standing between this group and lunch. Will you please join me in thanking our panelists and commenters from the audience?